Hey, thanks for tuning in to another Journeys with Jack. We got a new audio-visual thing today that we're doing, and my son Sam was helping me out, so I'm going to put a shout out to him. So some friends of mine were heading over to London, and being good friends, he asked me would I do a little talk about my experiences over there and put it out there for them to check out. So here we go. So typically when you come into London, you fly into Gatwick or you fly into Heathrow. Now, if you're coming into Gatwick, you get a train called the Gatwick Express and can take it over to Victoria Station. All kinds of tube lines come into Victoria Station. The tube is slang for the London Underground. Buses come there, etc. So it's a great spot to start out. You don't want to have a car in London, trust me. All right, if you're going into Heathrow, which is an older airport, Heathrow actually is serviced by one of the London Underground lines, the Piccadilly line, as a matter of fact. I had to consult my notes, but that's it. And so you can get on the Piccadilly line and ride into Piccadilly Circus, for instance. Now, getting around London. This is a great device, the Oyster card. The Oyster card, you can order it here from the States via the mail. I had 4 of them shipped to us a while back when the family went over there. And if you look down here, this is the symbol for the London Underground. This is London Rail, and it also works on the buses. Now, you want to get around London with the tube. The tube, or London Underground, is highly developed, as this small schematic map will show you. This one's old, a few years back, and it's even more expanded now. It saves you so much time because the traffic is substantial there. Now for short hops, you might want to try the iconic black taxis, look like something from the 1930s, really cool, or of course, the famous red double-decker buses. Again, Oyster card lets you hop on the bus, hop on the tube, you pay cash for the taxi. All right, let's talk about accommodation a minute. I'm going to mention 3 different levels. I stayed at all 3 of these. Zedwell at Piccadilly Circus is an old Trocadero complex. It's really cool, but it's very Spartan. It is cocoon style, which means there are 4 bunk beds in there and a tiny bathroom, no windows, and that's it. Stayed there with a family of 4. Tough. Now, a little bit higher up, something akin to Days Inn in America would be the Premier Inn. They're scattered all over London. We stayed in the one near Tower Hill. Has an excellent full-on English breakfast, very affordable, about £13. By contrast, I pay double that at the next hotel, actually maybe even triple. So the last high luxury over in Mayfair is the St. James Hotel and Club. It is lovely, luxurious, as one would expect, staying in the higher end area of London Mayfair. Also nearby there's the old Park Lane Hotel, another fabulous place to visit. Let's talk about shopping a bit. So that's a big deal going to London. And Knightsbridge is where you get your high-end stuff. Harvey Nichols, short as Harvey Nicks, that's where Princess Diana used to shop. World famous Harrods is also in Knightsbridge. Now, if you want a little bit more moderate price things, but still things that are sharp and cool looking, you can go over to Oxford Street. Oxford Circus would be the tube line that you would, or the tube station you would get off. And by the way, these are served by various and sundry different lines like Circle Line, Piccadilly Line, Victoria Line. You'll hear those referenced, especially as you're doing a bit of research. But Oxford Circus, if you get off there, you can walk to Liberty of London very quickly. Liberty of London is a 2-story department store, very old, dating back, I think, to the 1920s, in a faux Tudor building. It's got the timber and plaster on the side. Also, Oxford Circus is your ticket to go into the area around Carnaby Street. World famous, really had a lot of cool alternative and trendy stuff, the 60s up till maybe end of the 80s. It's not quite what it once was, but still quite interesting. Over in that area is also a flagship store of Charles Tyrwhitt. Now, I might mention, once you've gone to these places, you want to try out some markets. London has fabulous markets. My 2 favorite are Petticoat Lane and Camden Town Market. Camden Town Market go Friday through Sunday, and incidentally, there's a statue of the musician Amy Winehouse there. Camden Town Market, I once got a great navy peacoat there. It was really good because I was in London in December and it was freezing. Now, this jacket that I'm wearing is a English team jacket for a soccer team, and it came from a market. Petticoat Lane Market is particularly good on Sunday, and you want to access that via the tube. Go to the Liverpool Street station. So let me move over and talk about places to eat. Now, by far the best lunch, hands down, in London, best value, etc., is the Crypt Cafe at St. Martin in the Fields Church, which abuts Trafalgar Square. Now, you're gonna go to Trafalgar Square. You take the Charing Cross tube station to get there. The Crypt serves lunch only. You go down below the church and eat in the cafe. It's fabulous. Trafalgar Square, of course, is where the very famous, iconic monument to the naval hero, Admiral Lord Nelson, is placed, and it is the one that has the very tall column with the 4 lions around it. Also, across that park is the National Gallery. So now you see why it's such a convenient lunch spot. Now, another place that I like to eat is Ruhl's Restaurant. In fact, that's my favorite place. That's the oldest restaurant in London. It was frequented by Charles Dickens. Now, it is super cool, and I need to warn you a little bit that that you've got to have reservations for it. You can get there by the same station I mentioned for St. Martin's in the Fields Church Crypt, Charing Cross Station. Now, final thing, the original Hard Rock Cafe was established in London in 1971, and it is accessed by Hyde Park Corner Station. I think it's on Park Lane. Anyway, interesting place. Started out because a couple of guys were there. They wanted a hamburger. I think one of them was from Jackson, Tennessee. The old restaurant had a tile in the ceiling that said, "God bless Jackson, Tennessee." So it all kind of started with the memorabilia when Eric Clapton brought in a guitar, and then later Pete Townsend of The Who, and just it took off from there. So in London, there are all kinds of sights to see. I just mentioned Trafalgar Square and the National Gallery. Now, Trafalgar Square, you want to go there, see the monument. Off to the far left of the square is a smaller monument to King Charles II, but the National Gallery is a piece de la resistance. I would point out that there are going to be long lines at the National Gallery and the British Museum. They are both free, but you can go online in advance and book free a ticket to let you in earlier, and you get past the quarter-mile long line. I'm not exaggerating. Perhaps a little bit less in the winter. At the National Gallery, all kinds of great painters, but you will see Vincent van Gogh's famous Sunflowers. You will see Leonardo da Vinci's Virgin of the Rocks, Madonna in Blue, 2 names for it, and John Constable's famous painting, The Hay Wain. Also Michelangelo, Van Meer, Rembrandt, etc., etc. So going over and speaking about the British Museum, you get there by going to either Tottenham Court Road or Holborn tube stations, and then walk about 5 minutes. British Museum is the site of the world-famous Rosetta Stone, which was discovered by Napoleon and his troops when he'd invaded Egypt in the late 1790s, and it had 3 different languages on it, and allowed linguists to be able to translate between ancient Greek, I think Latin, and hieroglyphics. So massively important in linguistic education. Also the Elgin marbles, which were purloined by Lord Elgin from the Parthenon in Greece. To this day, it's an ill subject between Greeks and Brits. Finally, there is an Egyptian section with fabulous displays of mummies, other Egyptian artwork, etc. I think you'll really enjoy that one. So let's move on a bit. St. Paul's Cathedral was designed by the famous architect Sir Christopher Wren, and if you have a sunny day, you want to go up to the top to the dome. It's about 500 steps up there, but it is an unparalleled view of London. I did it back a few years ago, and I'm grateful that I did. Most recently when I went, we attended church there, and I sat in the left nave by the statue of Horatio Nelson, the aforementioned Lord Admiral Nelson. So it's free to go in if you're worshiping. There is otherwise an admission fee. Now, speaking of Sir Christopher Wren, he was the gentleman who was in charge of the restoration work at Westminster Abbey. He wasn't the original architect. It was built way back in the time of Edward the Confessor, before the Norman invasion in 1066. But Westminster Abbey has been the site of coronations and weddings of the royals and other famed people, burial places for super famous statesmen and royals, understandably. It is accessed by, you guessed it, the Westminster Tube Station. Right in that same area is where you will encounter Big Ben, and I've got a great little thing to show you. Here's an iconic London Bobby. This is a Royal Doulton piece of china, and there's the Big Ben as the handle of it. But that's where you'll see Big Ben in the Houses of Parliament. So another famous London landmark is the Tower of London. Perhaps it's the most famous, and you get to it via the Central Line going up to Tower Hill Tube Station. Now, we stayed in a hotel nearby there, which worked out great because we had excellent tube access. And later one night we went to a concert on a Sunday night over at Wembley Stadium, saw the band Blur, for those of you who remember the 90s. Woohoo! So Tower Hill, how to get into the Tower of London, which is where the crown jewels are kept, also where theoretically Richard II had his young nephews murdered. Also, it is where the famous armory is, including some of the armor of King Henry VIII. Now, there are also private chambers where Queen Elizabeth had her friend, possibly paramour, Sir Walter Raleigh, in prison. Easy walk from Tower of London out to London Bridge, so avail yourself of that opportunity when you're there. Now, I've talked about a lot of older places, famous places. Here's one that's maybe more modern history. If you go to the tube station St. John's Wood, that'll take you over to the area of Abbey Road for you Beatles fans, and you too can get the very iconic photograph crossing the black and white striped pavement, such as John, Paul, George, and Ringo did all those years ago, about 1969. Incidentally, Paul McCartney lives in that area. He's lived in the same house there since the 1960s. So, the big one, Buckingham Palace. Now, you can do it a couple of different ways. They have the changing of the guard there Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday at 11 a.m. There are crowds like you wouldn't believe. So I'm going to give you a little travel hack. Here's what I would recommend. This has worked for us. Very much did I like this, better than trying to just fight through crowds right up at the palace. So instead, get there early and go to the St. James Palace. Most specifically, go to the Marlborough Gate off of Marlborough Street. You can get to this area by riding the tube to Green Park Station and then walk about 5 minutes, or you can walk maybe about 10 minutes from Piccadilly Circus. And if you get to this area, you'll be able to see both of the household cavalry troops, those clad in red and those clad in blue, and hear military band as they proceed up to the Buckingham Palace along a road called Pall Mall, P-A-L-L, next word, Mall, M-A-L-L. Very well worth your while, and you get to basically walk along with the troops as they're heading up to change, and then if you wish, you can stay at the palace, Buckingham Palace, or you can walk back with the troop that's leaving, but you'll also be treated to some excellent military band. So thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope that you enjoy your trip over to London, and I appreciate you watching my little video presentation. So I had to make a signal to my friend Sam to turn me off.